Welcome back to Open Line. I'm Emily Luxen. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we're talking about empowering women business owners with our guest tonight, Sherry Deutschmann. She is a businesswoman, entrepreneur, and founder and CEO of BrainTrust. And Sherry, as a journalist, I would say starting a business seems pretty intimidating to me, especially trying to start a business that's going to try to reach a 1 million mark in annual revenue like what your company helps people do. What unique challenges do you think women face when they're trying to get a business off the ground?
I think often we don't know what we don't know. And so that's why, being with peers is really helpful. But in general, women, and especially Southern women, aren't comfortable talking about money. And so when they go to seek financing, if they seek financing, they don't ask for enough money. And they don't come off as confident in asking for the money. And so just to get women more comfortable with that space, in our BrainTrust meetings, the women every month report the revenue from the previous month. So there's just this great vulnerability and honesty about saying this is exactly how much money we brought in, to kind of start breaking that barrier down and getting women comfortable with talking about money. And I think, the funding is a problem. There was like $80 billion invested by private equity and venture capital in the U.S. in 2020, and 2% of that went to women. And women of color got a fraction of that. So there is a real problem with the funding for women. And I think that it's definitely getting better as a lot of women are starting to create funds now that invest just in women. And as more savvy investors are realizing that women are really good bets. So we're trying to tackle those systemic problems.
And you mentioned women of color, minority business owners. I know you work with a lot of them as well. Same challenges or different challenges for them?
Same challenges and more. So I think the average revenue for a woman of color last year was like $22,000. For a white woman, it was $140-some thousand. The massive disparity. And so that is one problem. There was a young woman in Nashville, India Newsom, who just had an event just for Black-owned businesses, Black women-owned businesses last week called She Did Her Thing, and had 30 local Black women business owners there selling their goods and services. It was a pretty impactful event.
So it sounds like, we're really sticking together, and women helping women is critical in all of these cases.
Yes, it is.
And you mentioned some numbers at the beginning of the show, 13 million women-owned businesses across the country. A few other numbers I just want to throw out there that I'm seeing. These businesses generate $1.8 trillion a year, and 40% of U.S. businesses are owned by women. Those numbers surprise me a little bit. Do you think that there are more and more women starting businesses, or what trends are you seeing?
Yes, especially Black women. Black women started businesses at a higher rate than anybody else in the country last year. So one major problem though holding them back and holding all women back is that I think less than 11% of these women-owned businesses actually have employees. And so they are solopreneurs and are working in the business and on the business and not able to build or scale a business. So having women start to think early about having employees is a big deal.
And of course, we have to talk about COVID. Challenges that come with COVID. It impacted all of us in different ways, but I'm sure it certainly impacted women in your circle as well.
It did, although I'm happy to say that not a single one went out of business last year. So when COVID first struck, my first concern was for me with this new company that we were, going to go out of business. And then I thought, no, I have to make sure the members stay in business. And if they stay in business, then we'll be fine. And then I thought, oh, that's got to be the message to them too. Forget about yourself. Focus on making sure your customers stay alive, and then you'll be okay. And I think it's amazing how many of them prospered through that time, or at least stayed, liquid. So
And you've mentioned a couple times the importance of focusing on customers. That seems to be an important mantra to kind of keep in mind. Why, and it may seem obvious, but why is that important to be a focus for business owners?
Well, they are the lifeblood. Without our customers, we have to have somebody to sell our goods and services to. I think women are especially good at focusing on taking care of their employees, and I believe strongly in the fact that if women take great care, if all business owners take great care of their employees, then the employees will in turn take great care of the customer, and that's just good for everybody all the way around.
Looking back, is there one thing you kind of wish you knew when you were starting out, or one thing that you think would have made a difference as you were kind of moving up the ranks as a business owner?
Wasn't prepared for that question.
I know that might be a tough one.
I think I learn new lessons every day, and some lessons I've had to relearn. But I think one thing that I've seen that I've done multiple times, and I see other business owners do, is hold on to bad employees for too long. So they're not bad people, but they're not a good fit, or they're not in the right place in an organization, and out of compassion and empathy, which we are blessed and cursed with, we hold on to people too long. And it's best to let those people go on and find a place where they can really prosper.
And what's your advice for someone who may be in a bad situation? You said you were personally in a frustrating situation. You don't feel like you were growing, you weren't moving up in the world, and you had to kind of take that bold step to get out and start something new. But that's a scary moment. What would your advice be to someone who maybe finds themselves in that situation and doesn't really know what direction to turn?
Well, right now the job market is amazing. So life is too short to spend it in a job that is not satisfying, with people that don't appreciate you. And, I'm grateful all the time that I had a boss who didn't appreciate me, because if it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't have been forced out to go, start a new business. But there's so many great opportunities to start businesses, but there are great opportunities to be good employees too. And just take the leap. There's really nothing to be afraid of right now. There are so many good jobs and good pay and good benefits.
And as far as the members that you work with BrainTrust, do they kind of run the gamut as far as different industries, or is there one particular type of business you tend to help or work with the most?
No, they're all across. We have a couple of chiropractors and a few lawyers, several women who are psychologists in marketing. It was interesting when we had the 10% of our members who made it to the $1 million mark. My first thought was, I wonder if they're all in the same industry, but none of them were. It was in very distinct and different industries. So that was really promising to me.
And we all have another advantage just being here in Nashville with the incredible growth. You and I were talking before the show started about just what we've seen personally in Nashville over the last 5 to 10 years. That has to be an advantage too for someone looking to start a business, I would assume.
Absolutely. We have the best entrepreneurial ecosystem. We've got the Entrepreneur Center, and we've got so many other organizations that support entrepreneurs. We have a really vibrant investor community. And I think that's something about Nashville that often gets overlooked. How many great angel investors and private equity firms and venture capital firms there are here, and that are constantly looking for deals and looking for companies to support. And I don't think every city can boast that.
So tell me, as far as BrainTrust goes, if people are listening, or they'd like to get more information, or they'd like to become a member, or what would that process be like, and where could they start to make that happen?
So our website is ourbraintrust.org. And so you start there with an application, and then there's an interview. In the interview process, we're looking more for mindset than anything else. We are looking for a woman who wants to learn and grow, and not necessarily somebody who wants to go in because they have a lot of knowledge they want to impart. We're looking for people who are really humble and hungry to learn. So there is an application process and then an interview process. And then after, if you are accepted into BrainTrust, then we look deliberately for 6 women who are nothing like you for your group. So your vault is as diverse as possible. And that is diversity when it comes to the type of industry, to the age of the other entrepreneurs, the age of the business, racial and ethnic diversity. and where the business is in its life cycle too, with our belief that the greater the diversity around the table in every way, that the more brain trust there is around the table, the richer the experiences are to share, so the women can learn from each other quicker. So we find these 6 other women for you, and then you go through a training where we teach the women how to listen, to understand, not to listen to respond. And we teach them how to share experiences, not advice. So we do not give advice in BrainTrust. We simply share our knowledge and experience. And then after the 3rd meeting, we're out. And the women are, it's self-moderated, so that they can have a great deal of confidence that everything that is said in that room is kept in strict confidentiality. So this is a place where you can really get vulnerable and talk about serious issues you're having in your personal or professional life. And I think that's an important part of BrainTrust, is that we are looking at the entrepreneur holistically, not just at her as a business owner, but how her business impacts her family and vice versa. And so a woman can bring any problem to the table and have the BrainTrust or their share from the other women.
And it's obviously an approach that's made a big difference. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more with Sherry Deutschmann right after this. Stay with us.